Cindy Stumpo's a general contractor for 25 years and counting.
I'm paying premium price. I expect premium product.
Stumpo has been building houses and shattering stereotypes.
The bad guy's here. It's up to the customer. I want a phone call back. I'm pretty upset. The customer is always right. Actually, I'm more than pretty upset.
Cindy Stumpo is tough as nails.
And welcome to Cindy Stumpo, Tough as Nails on WBZ News Radio 1030. And I'm here tonight with my daughter, Sammy.
Hi.
Hi, Sammy. You know what the best part of this evening's going to be?
What?
Is I'm not going to be the only one that says Saturday. Okay, the wrong way, okay? So, let's start.
I'm the only one in the room that doesn't have a Boston accent.
I can't, but you are from Boston. I don't know what happened to you. Okay, I don't know. But it doesn't matter because the two people I have in my studio.
I know sometimes she told me I was switched at birth and there's no way I'm her child.
You were switched at birth, but we'll leave that alone. But they can't say Saturday either, okay? And so it's Saturday. So I'd like to introduce, the topic tonight is opiate addiction. And my guests tonight are father and daughter, Bobby and Meagan Kenney. Bobby's an actor, and he was in the construction business, and he'll explain that too. And Meagan is a PhD student, and she'll get into more about, her
Story.
Thank you. I'm having trouble tonight. We call that a what moment?
Menopause moment.
There we go. You got it down. Okay, together
I think she wished she could say she's had menopause moment her whole life.
No, it's just now. I'm telling you, it's the last year. Together, they also host a podcast show called The Addictionary. I think I pronounced it right. The Addictionary. They are both recovering drug addicts and hope to inspire recovery. So I'd like to welcome Bobby and Meagan. Hi, guys.
Hi, guys.
Thank you. Thank you for having us,
Yes, thank you for having us both.
Okay, so first of all, Meagan, how do you say Saturday?
Saturday.
Thank you. Bobby.
Saturday.
Love it. I don't feel alone here. Okay. So as we all know, I'm Cindy Stumpo, and I'm a builder of 30 years, right? So when I build homes and turn the keys over to their families, their new families, I walk away imagining all great memories that they're going to be making, giving birth to children, and I don't see the black when I deliver a home. I only see all good. And that's great because I'm a pretty jaded person, but that's still my feeling. I don't think of the black that's going to go on behind the family. I never want to see the ugly, just the beauty. And I'm not delusional, and I'm a pretty sharp girl, but it is what it is. So first, I'd like to tell you how I met Bobby. Once again, a TV show called Tough as Nails. Bobby, do you remember that?
I sure do.
Okay, so
watched it faithfully.
Okay, but Bobby came on my social media, and he was a huge fan, a huge supporter of me. And every time somebody picked on me outside the country, your dad, Meagan, was right there to fight my battles.
I was like a pit bull.
Okay,
I had a pit bull.
I had the unions on there with me, and they're absolutely annihilating like the HGTV, Bible Belt area and the way down south. But anyways, your dad and I became friendly, and then they called me to do this movie, and it's playing the role of this head of the family mafia, and I'm like, okay, well, I physically can fit this part, but I can't remember my lines. So I called Bobby. I said, Bobby, I was asked to do this movie, and he's like, what movie, Cindy? I told him, I've got a part in that movie. I said, great. How am I going to learn my lines? I do reality. I'm not an actress. I'll be at your house or your office, wherever you want to meet, Sunday, and you're going to learn your lines. Right, Bobby?
Yeah.
So he came to my office, 4 hours we sat there, and I couldn't remember my lines, okay? I just couldn't remember them. And then I'm redoing the lines because I'm going, Bobby, this doesn't make sense. Like, she would never talk like this. Fast forward, we get to the day that we got to go tape the scenes, and I walk in, I've got the heels, the pencil skirt, the black. I look the part. Like, you're not going to screw around with me, okay? Meanwhile, I'm going like this. What was the line? What am I supposed to say? Okay, so I look great in it, but I just couldn't get the lines out. So fast forward, we're here, and that's how your dad and I became friendly. And I love your dad. He's a great guy. He's a warm, giving human being. And the truth is, I didn't even know Bobby ever suffered from any type of drug addiction. Or maybe he wasn't using drugs when I met Bobby or whatever. But you'll bring us up to speed on that one. So now you guys, tell me something. What is going on here? Explain to my listeners. We all know that we have an opiate problem out here.
Massive.
So take it from there.
Well, right now, I think we're at 174 plus overdose deaths per day in this country as a result of opioid addiction. So, it's a massive problem. the latest statistics said it's actually shortened the lifespan of like middle-aged men ages, 20-something to 40-something. So I mean, we're at risk at losing an entire generation right now. And if you kind of scale back to how this problem started, it really started with this big aggressive push to overprescribe opioids and treat pain as if it was the fifth vital sign. And so doctors were really like threatened basically with sanctions against their medical license if they didn't treat every patient that came into their office that complained of pain. And they would have been told that they were not compassionate enough. And so that's when the overproduction of the OxyContin from the pharmaceutical company named Purdue started. And it really just has taken off from there. And so massive amounts of people became addicted to OxyContin. Then they stopped creating the original OxyContin medication. People turned to other opioid pills. And then they turned to heroin. And now we have a fentanyl epidemic. So it's massive.
Okay, so I'm 53 years old. And I remember watching, how's this, going down the Commons as a little girl. And watching all those, what was they called, hippies?
Mm-hmm.
And I was a little girl and I was afraid of them.
Mm-hmm.
And then the story of Charles Manson, and that's when I learned about, heroin, watching as a little girl.
Right.
But I didn't think that it existed when I was a teenager, or 20 or 21, 22, 24. I never heard of it.
Right.
But people were doing it, and I had friends that were doing it. They were just doing it behind closed doors,
Right.
I guess.
And I think that's the difference between like my dad's generation and his experience with drug addiction, and particularly opioids, and mine is like back in the 60s and 70s. I mean, you can speak a little bit more to this than I can, obviously, but
Well, Megan, you're how old?
I'm 33.
Okay.
So I grew up, and when I was at high school age, that was when the OxyContin epidemic
I agree.
was in
I
full
saw it all
blown.
the time too.
Yeah.
And Sammy's 31.
Yeah. So
And she's, I can ask in public right now. I know
No,
the
I've
answer's
never
going to be.
done one.
She's
I've never
never
taken
done.
anything.
But
God.
I think I put the fear of God into my kids, like about drugs.
I mean,
like the fear.
if I got my wisdom teeth out, I didn't take anything. You weren't going to let me anyways.
No,
Right.
no, that's why I
And
asked the
that's
doctor.
key. That's
Are
a
you
key.
going to give my daughter painkillers to have her wisdom teeth taken? Yes. I go, no, you're not.
Right.
You're going to give me them. And if she can't get past with Tylenol, then I'll decide.
Right.
Because all she has to do is take one. And that was my question. One can trigger something in the brain, and next thing you know, your kid's running. Right or
Exactly.
wrong?
Yep.
100%.
Yep.
And that's how the majority of people that are suffering right now started with their addiction. I mean, most of the people that we're seeing now, and I think this is kind of like my when I get up on my soapbox when I talk about the issue of addiction right now, is like we're dealing with an addict right now that is far different than what has come out of the 60s, 70s, and 80s. We're dealing with a new face of addiction, people who aren't your typical homeless person on the corner begging for money. I mean, we're talking about people from wealthy families, intact homes, loving parents. You're talking about judges' kids, lawyers' kids, police officers, doctors' kids. And we're talking about the fact that this epidemic kind of just cuts across every socioeconomic status that there is.
And Bobby, what's the difference? You start. Okay, let me start here. You started with what, Bobby?
I started in the 60s with acid.
Acid.
I was one of those hippies. I was probably one of those guys over in the Common. you were
Probably.
looking at,
See?
Hey,
That's where I know you from.
There you go. Under a tree with like painted things on your face.
Yep.
So you started with acid in the 60s.
In the late 60s,
Then you
acid,
went-
Black Beauties, and, so on. But then I opened my first business at 19 years old, and I didn't do drugs all through my 20s until my early 30s, I owned 12 pieces of property. I owned a bar, a restaurant. And then when I bought the bar, I got mixed up with the wrong people, and they handed me kilos of
Coke.
Bobby, you can move these for us. Some of them.
Yeah,
Next-
this is the street here that we're in, okay?
Yes.
We're,
Yeah.
we're talking street days,
So now
okay.
I'm moving kilos. I'm back and forth to Florida, down to Little Havana. And next thing I know, I start smoking this when I'm down in Florida. They said,
So you went from snorting to smoking.
I went from snorting to smoking it. And once I started smoking it, oh my God.
All right, here's what I hate. We got to go out to break, but go ahead. Give it. You start smoking.
10-day binges in a hotel, I mean,
Not coming out of the hotel room for 10 days.
I wouldn't even let the maids in. I would slip $20 under the door every time they knocked. And they were knocking like 5 times a day. Every time they knocked, I'd slip a 20
How
under the door.
paranoid were you?
Oh, Jesus, please.
This is Cindy Stumpo, Tough as Nails, on WBZ News Radio 1030. We'll be right back after this break. We all want to say, my son the doctor, my daughter the lawyer. Guess what? That's great and wonderful. But I got to be honest, when my parents say, my daughter the general contractor, Cindy Stumpo, it's really cool. Let your kids pick their own path. Be there to guide them. Be there to support them. And welcome back to Tough as Nails on WBZ News Radio. We're here with Samantha. We're here with Bobby. We're here with Meagan. Bobby, we just left off on you locking yourself in a hotel room, paranoid out of your brains, and,
Speaking
smoking
out
coke.
windows, seeing, after 10 days, seeing trains coming through my room, jumping out of the way. I mean,
Sometimes you got to laugh at this.
I
it's
laugh
not-
at it all day. But,
Okay, because that was a different type of drug.
Totally.
It was
totally.
bad. It was bad. And then I learned that someone turned me on to heroin and said, if you do a bag of heroin, you'll bring you right down. You won't be paranoid. So I tried snorting a bag of heroin. Wow, I come right down. It was nice. I said, wow, this is nice, And then after doing that for a while, the binges, the heroin, I ended up with a habit, And now I'm...
So now you're giving up the coke behind you, or you're mixing both?
I'm doing both, really.
All right, so you were doing two heavy drugs, man.
Yeah.
You were major. You were
and I'm trying
pumping
to
the heart.
run a-
Hold on. You're pumping the heart up.
Yeah.
And you're bringing the heart rate down.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was mixing them together, doing them.
Okay.
And then I'm trying to run a bar and a restaurant, and we got raided, and then I went to prison for a few years. And
Bobby's really a good guy. Please don't judge him by this,
Yeah.
okay? Because we don't judge addicts and we don't judge people that go to jail unless they're
We don't
child
judge
molesters.
anybody.
Hold on. Child molesters, rapists, okay? Got no tolerance for whatever happens to them, and men that hit women. So those are three things. Other than that,
no, I'm none of those.
okay,
but,
that's all we care about. So you
And,
went and did some time.
yeah, and
You
I get
clean?
out, and I opened up, got back into the carpet business, opened a warehouse in East Cambridge, and and then I did that for another, 10 years, and then I just got burnt out and I had a store in Medford, in Mystic Ave in Medford.
How long you been clean for, Bobby?
Oh, 20 years, over 20 years.
So people can get clean and stay clean.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that's the biggest key. That's like for us, that's the take home message of the Addictionary podcast is like, we've done some pretty bad stuff in our using days. And yeah, our behavior was incredibly problematic and so wasn't our use. But there was a human being beneath all of that nobody got a chance to see throughout the heyday of our using. And it's a beautiful thing now when we can kind of come out of the depths of that darkness and show people who we really are as human beings. And I think that's what we can't lose sight of. It's really easy to look at a drug addict and say, ooh, he did this and she did that. They've been in and out of jail. They're bad people. But I mean, you really never get to know who that person is as long as their whole personality and their behavior and their cognition is being influenced by this drug. So the best thing that I can tell people is like, believe in us and allow us to show you what we're really capable of, because everybody has their potential and we can't meet it if we have society telling us we're not worth it.
Okay, and I agree with that. And I hate the word junkie. I hate the word losers. And I ride people so hard on that. Listen, this is a disease. This is a horrible disease.
Right.
Okay? No different than my panic attacks that people, that's a disease. Okay? So I have a question for you.
Who's
How
you?
old were you? What's that?
Who's you? Who are you talking to?
Megan. I'm sorry. I'm looking at Megan. Megan, did you know your father had such a drug problem? And when did you know?
So I remember visiting him in jail when I was a little kid, and we tell a funny story on the podcast about how I, thought that I was visiting him at camp.
Yeah.
And I asked him questions of like, Dad, what are the barbed wires on the fences for? And he's like, Megan, those are for the bears. We have some pretty big bears up here. And then he's like, and then I'm like, well, why do the guys hold guns, And he's like, well, they have to try to scare the bears off. So I mean, I remember that vividly of that experience and seeing him in jail and then seeing him struggle, his mood swings, and as a child and then as a teenager kind of, living through that and the chaos that his drug addiction brought our family. And so
So you grew up in a toxic environment.
yeah,
Would you say
it
that?
was pretty toxic. I mean, he did a really, really good job of hiding it from me, but kids know.
Okay.
Kids know.
And of course, and your mom, she's probably the one that's the most normal, not doing
Yep.
drugs.
She's
'cause
the
this-
rock that stuck with us and really took care of us. And, when things were bad, she was always there,
And she was clean.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
And she's dealing with all this
she really
lunacy around her.
detested the drugs, So she was more of the tough love type of a person where she didn't tolerate it. She just...
But she hung in there with you, Bobby.
She
Yeah.
did. She hung in there, and I don't know how or why, but she did.
And I think for me that was a huge piece as to why I'm in the program that I'm in, studying what I'm studying, is because
and
thanks
I want to talk
her.
about that, Megan. How long
Yeah.
are you clean now?
It'll be 6 years in July.
And let's get your. We know how Bobby started. Let's start with you. How old were you?
So I was 20, using cocaine recreationally.
How old?
20.
Why, cocaine was still big when you were 20?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it was
That
actually
made a
probably-
comeback too?
Yeah, it actually did. It made a comeback big time, and I would say maybe even still now, but back when I was 20, yeah, definitely.
And again, you're 30.
33 now.
Okay,
yeah,
so-
so 13 years ago.
So you started right off with coke.
Yeah, and this was 20 years old. This was not high school, you know? Like, my high school was swarmed with OxyContin. I mean, my high school was one of the worst hit high schools probably in the state.
And you didn't do drugs in high school?
Nope.
So at 20, you decided you were going to pick up.
Yep.
What made you pick up? Or
I was-
start using drugs? Was it just recreational?
Yeah, it was recreational. I was working in the nightclubs. It was kind of commonplace. And then I started dating somebody who was an OxyContin dealer, and I didn't know it at the time. And we started hanging out, and I tried OxyContin. Well, I shouldn't say I tried it. I tried it recreationally, maybe once or twice in high school, but it started when I was 21 every day.
So if you never met this man, guy, boy, you let him influence you.
Yep. And it was a toxic relationship, and I describe it as really kind of like the perfect storm. Like, I was having conflict with friends. I had this abusive partner who was feeding me drugs and was mentally, deteriorating
And here,
me every day.
and here I'm sitting in the studio with Bobby, watching Bobby's reaction as Megan's talking. Bobby, you're not a weak guy. You're a tough guy. And you know this is going on? Do you know that this guy's putting his hands on your daughter?
If I just said the wrong thing about this guy, just mentioned his name in front of her, it was
Yeah.
a battle.
I know that feeling.
You don't know what I went through.
I'm sure.
What could have happened out of this.
But-
It got real serious. But
I got to tell you,
could-
coming from the father I come from, he would have ended up in jail.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have cured.
I
Okay, he wouldn't have
this
cured.
close,
If the clock was turned back. But you're right. There's only so much we can do as parents,
I had to make a decision. What's the right decision here? For her and
and for you
Robin,
not to end up in jail for the rest of your life.
Exactly.
Yeah. How good?
So
what
your
good would I
bad
be?
moves could have put him in jail for the rest of his life.
100%. 100%.
And this is what drugs do.
Yep.
Yeah.
And this is what drugs do.
Jeopardize the safety and the well-being of everybody in the family. That's why we call it a family disease. It's not just one identified patient. It's like that person is swirling, and everybody is swirling around them during
But
their
you
active
didn't
addiction.
learn from monkey see, monkey do. It didn't, like, something didn't hit with you and say
you
no.
know-
Because kids can go either this way
Yes.
or they go follow the way
Yep.
of what their parents do. You saw the bad, but still moved on with this lunacy.
Yeah, and I think part of that was just like I idolized it. It was attractive to me, that dark side, that chaos, that impulsive behavior. That was like exciting to me.
And now?
And it's still, it's funny. Like, I still talk about my use in that very exhilarating way. Like, I don't leave that whole part of my personality behind. I just have figured out a way to take that lunacy and that outspokenness and that impulsivity and put it to something good. So now I'm just like, I don't know, workaholic, you could say.
Well,
I do
would,
a lot.
Okay, so I would tell you this.
So she switched
One,
to bad addiction for a good addiction.
Right. So you took your addiction, now you're throwing it into yourself
Right.
and into work.
Right.
And that's okay. You're not going to hurt anybody from doing that.
Exactly.
Okay, maybe yourself. You might get, a little burnt out down the road like I
Right.
am right now at 53. But that's another story for
doing
another
my-
day.
Sure, mine's the same day.
But, Bobby,
Yeah.
you're clean 20 years,
Yeah.
right? Mm-hmm. And you think your daughter will be able to stay clean too? And you think that, because again, all it takes is one, if you got sick and you have 20 years behind you and dad ends up in the hospital and they give him opiates for whatever reason, he has to have surgery. That one time can trigger
That's right.
another 20-year run for him or you.
That's right. I mean, I've had surgeries while in recovery, and I am an informed patient, and I advocate for myself, and I say there's no way you're giving me opioids, so you're going to have to figure out something else, because that's not happening today.
So
I'm not going to risk the work that I put into myself and risk the safety and well-being of myself and my family. So there are options out there. You just have to be an informed patient, and you have to advocate for yourself, and that's what I've done throughout my entire recovery.
What advice can you give people? My best advice is this. Don't try it. If you never try it, you'll never know if you like it. But that's not realistic, obviously. So give the listeners some advice. How do they know first? How will parents know if their kids are on drugs?
Oh, Dad talks about it all the time with me, but significant personality shifts, isolating, staying away from the family, not engaging in conversation,
Mood swings.
sleeping all day. Behavior changes, personality changes. You know your kid. You know what they're like. You know how social they are or how introverted they are. And when you see that shift, that's the key. Pay attention to that.
So you really have to watch your kids very carefully.
Yep.
I hold that thought. This is Cindy Stumpo, tough as nails, on WBZ News Radio 1030, and I'm not the only one here with a Boston accent tonight. I'm loving it. And welcome back to Tough as Nails on WBZ News Radio 1030. That's a perfect song. I'm Cindy Stumpo, and I'm here with Samantha. We're talking about the opiate addiction, and my guests, father and daughter, Bobby and Meagan Kenney. Bobby, you were just saying, I love that song, by the way. I gotta tell you, it hits every lyric in that song. It's just like perfect. But anyways, Bobby, you're talking about what to watch for in kids. And some of those similarities are just being a teenager too, wanting to sleep till 1 o'clock. But I would think that kid's waking up with a personality that's aggressive or not aggressive, yellow, bags under their eyes, and just being...
Loss of appetite, mainly. That's the biggest thing. Loss of weight, color, the eyes tell the story. Yeah, you can't hide that. When she's walking by me in the middle of the day with sunglasses on in the house, it didn't take, and I've been there, so I know, but I didn't want to take that tough love approach with her because knowing her personality, very similar to mine, you say the wrong thing and I could drive her deeper into the abyss very easily by, saying the wrong thing when you're coming off you may be trying to come off,
right. Very volatile.
But here's the question. You're a daughter, so if he's got to take you down to your knees, he can take you down real fast, okay, if he's got to protect himself. Mm-hmm. What about the father, that their son is now stronger than the father, and the son takes the father down, and I'm sure this got to be going on a lot.
Absolutely.
In a lot of houses, and without drugs.
Right.
Kids are getting more and more disrespectful, and then add drugs to the equation, then it's really toxic between a father and a son.
Absolutely.
At least you can, grab her.
I don't know.
You don't know. She might take you down.
She's a kickboxing instructor.
But, okay, so we talked about what you watch for. Now you know your kid is using. And we're trying to laugh here, and I want the listeners to know that. We're trying to laugh because this is such a stressful situation for a lot of people that we just want to try to have a different approach of how you're going to address your kids.
Right.
And everybody's here is standing up on their shoulders at all times when your kid is using. But when I said to Bobby, finish, you said you were engaging with her and not talking about her drug use when we went to commercial. And you just wanted to have conversation with her.
Yeah.
So, what?
Just talk about anything just to keep her in the house and keep her, feel like I'm reaching her, because I knew there was a person inside of her that I knew that other people couldn't see because of the drugs. She had this exterior, with the drugs, she created this exterior, but I knew what was underneath there, and I'm trying every which way to get to, to just reach that person again.
Because one, you were in her shoes at one point of your life, and two, now you're out, and now you're seeing it affect your daughter. It's got to be heartbreaking.
It's frustrating, it's heartbreaking, and you just don't want to do the wrong thing, so the best thing I could do was just engage in conversation till I figured it out.
Okay.
And that was crucial for me because what do we experience as addicts throughout our whole career of using? Being judged, stigmatized. The shame keeps us sick. It's the secrets that keep us sick. If we're not able to talk about what makes us happy, what motivates us, what our goals are, because nobody's asking us, then we fall. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. We're that loser drug addict that everybody keeps telling us we are. So we stay sick, we stay silent. The shame mounts. And then we don't have the motivation to actually believe we can get better.
Do you recall your dad ever calling you a loser, or your mom ever using those words?
Just
out of frustration.
Yeah, there were some dark days with Mom specifically. Probably Dad not so much because he really got it differently than my mom did. But she looked at it and was just like, look at it from her perspective. She had struggled with him as a drug addict for however long. And now, however many years, now it's me.
Here, Meagan, explain your background so listeners understand. Go ahead. Explain your education. Explain everything.
Sure. So, so I have a master's degree in clinical mental health counseling, and the concentration of that program was in forensic and correctional counseling. The motivation for that was because here I live with this guy that's been in and out of jail. On paper, looks really scary. You know, my peers in my cohort, when we do personality assessments and all sorts of other mental health related tests, we get his results and we're horrified, right?
Off your father's results.
Yes.
Okay.
But I know the person.
Right.
I know the person. So that motivated me to want to get into a program where I was developing the skills to help guys like him.
Okay, good. Now we all understand. So Meagan is coming from and learning and moving forward with a lot of knowledge on drug addiction. Right.
And now
okay.
I'm in a clinical psychology doctoral program. So
okay. So here's
it
your
really is.
drug addict loser, okay, and getting her master's, or
Exactly.
has got her master's.
Already have my master's.
Already has her master's. So it goes to show you guys, if you're listening, that things do turn around, and there are real people in these bodies that are suffering.
That's right.
And some find their way out, and some never find their way
That's
out.
right.
So let's try, look at Bobby. We can't get out here and we can't help the 50, 40, 50, 60-year-olds. They can only start helping themselves.
Right.
My question is, what is the average age of somebody that starts to touch upon drugs, whether it's pot or whether it's straight for the gusto or alcohol? What's the average age, would you say? Because I hear it's as young as 11, 12.
Yeah, that's
We hear 11.
We hear 11 often.
Often.
With the podcast
Yeah,
guests that
with
we have.
alcohol, you
Yeah,
know.
and
So
pot.
it starts somewhere, self-medicating.
Yeah.
Yep. And I will say the theme consistently, and this was a big part of my story too, was not being comfortable in your own skin, being socially anxious, not knowing how to fit in a social environment. You try that drug or that drink one time, and all of a sudden, there's the relief.
So peer pressure is a big thing.
Yeah, peer
No,
pressure.
basically also
peer-
what she's saying is they don't have social...
Yeah, but so that's a fear of peer pressure. The fact that if you're the one person not
Right.
doing it, you feel left out.
you're not included. You're in the
Right.
out group.
Right.
You then feel socially
What do
more
you mean,
awkward.
if you're not using drugs?
Right.
But that what my question was, why do they start so young? Meagan said, because a lot of it's being socially inept.
Right.
And then they can come out of their skin because they had a beer. They smoked a joint back in my days. You know what I mean?
Which, to Sam's point, usually
It
happens,
happens
in the
because of peer
context
pressure.
Of
Really?
peers. Yeah.
Yeah.
oh, sure. Yeah.
You've been saying to me my whole life, don't be a follower, don't be a follower. I'm the opposite of a complete follower.
Right.
Always have been. She just always kept telling me that. And I was like, all my friends can drink and do drugs. I don't care.
Right.
So, and she didn't. And that's really the truth. Like, she really didn't. And I was on my kids at a young age. Guys, if you'll never know if you like something, if you never try it, you'll never know.
I'm not saying I didn't drink and stuff like that, but I mean, if I was choosing to drive that night, I was sober when everyone else was drunk. It didn't bother me, but I have a lot of friends that say they would be the one that wanted to drink and they'd still drive.
Okay, so my next question is this. We find out our children are using, what do we do? And by the way, my question is, and this is only my personal opinion, but I don't like pot. I don't care what you call it, cannabis or whatever you want a big fancy name for it. I believe it's the gateway drug. I'm sorry. That's only, again, I'm talking from a 53-year-old brain. I could be wrong. I don't know the statistics. But if it's going to change your personality, and by the way, people, from the ages of 15 to 24, 25, a boy's brain is still maturing. You put that pot in their body, it's slowing down the mental growth.
Yep.
And that's what I'm told.
Yep.
Am I right? Am I wrong?
That's true. The brain has been known to stop developing around age 25. Some research is saying even later.
In boys.
Everybody.
Everybody.
Yep, everybody.
So is pot a gateway drug in your opinion or no? Because
So
I know you're going to tell me good things about pot too.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the thing is my research right now for my doctoral project is really focused on how pot can be used as an exit drug. And the research is showing us now...
No, give me from the beginning. You're giving me the exit out because I know
Right.
you're going to go here.
Yeah.
But from the beginning, is pot a gateway drug to using other drugs? We know that Bobby didn't start with pot.
Right.
What are the statistics?
They're
'Cause-
saying now that it's actually not the gateway drug, that alcohol is the gateway drug, and people are looking at marijuana like the exit drug. And that's what people are saying because of the therapeutic effects that cannabis can have on somebody.
Okay, so pot is not the gateway drug. So I'm totally backwards in my thinking. And I'm a dinosaur, and that's okay.
I don't know that you're 100% wrong, though. I mean, I think a lot of stories you do hear kids that start out with pot. It's just that we can't say that if we're looking at all these people that continue to use pot throughout the rest of their life and don't use other drugs. Or a lot of the young kids now, as a result of this opioid epidemic, are starting right with oxycodone. They're not even touching pot and alcohol. That's the first drug that they're trying. And then they're going right to heroin.
Okay, so Bobby, I have a question here too. You find out your kid is using. What do you do next? What's the first thing, if you can catch it early on? Like I said, I can't help the 50 and 60-year-olds. They're always set in their ways. The young kid, do you put him in a program right away? What do you do with this 15-year-old? Let's take 15 to 18. What do you do with that child?
I'd get them right in a program because you can still control them at that age, you know, and they're still learning. So I'd get them in a rehab. We tried putting her in a rehab. She was in her, 20s?
Yeah.
That's
I think
hard
she
already.
stayed a few days.
So
and
at 15,
left.
16, while they're still in junior high school or high school, you get them right into a
I'd get them
program.
right in
Yep.
a rehab. I don't
Inpatient.
care if they're there 6 months,
Yeah,
a year.
and that's
I
the
don't
key
care.
is long term.
Well, long term. I don't believe in any of that short term. This is hold that thought. This is Cindy Stumpo, Tough as Nails on WBZ News Radio 1030. We'll be right back after this short break. Joe, please explain what a bulkhead is.
It's a cellar entry cover, metal cover, or a composite cover that fits over a stairwell. Going downstairs, basically it should be weather tight to keep the weather out and the rodents out. It's all about installation.
I only bring people into my studio that know what they're doing. Trust me on that one. And welcome back to Tough as Nails on WBZ News Radio 1030. I'm here with Sammy. I'm here talking about opiate addiction. My guests are father and daughter, Bobby and Meagan Kenney. They're both recovering drug addicts. Bobby, we left off on programs. Talk to me. Your kids, 15, 16 years old. What's your opinion? A week program, a 2-week program, long-term program?
Long term, no other way. There's
Okay.
just no other way. 2 weeks just won't do it.
How
you know?
about when mom and dad are not on the same page?
Well,
One knows something's going on and one is in full denial.
I dealt with that for a long time, you know, because I kept trying to tell my wife, listen, there's a problem. I know there's a problem. Look at her personality, you know, changes, the mood swings, this, that. She's sleeping all day, you know. Oh, well, she had exams and this and that. So this went on from the time she was in Merrimack to Suffolk to her master's. I mean,
So it's again, we don't want to see it.
she did not
Denial.
want to see it, and she saw it.
So you're fighting with her
yeah.
because you see it.
Yeah, and I wanted to get her in a rehab, but here she is. We can't put her in a rehab because she's, in school. How's she going to take 3 months off? She's going for her,
So
her
the
degrees.
point is,
and
you know your kid's using.
Yep.
One parent doesn't know. One parent is convinced. You take the kid to a doctor and you have the kid drug tested.
Sure.
It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
Then the denial is no denial. It's black and white,
Yeah.
right? There it is. Okay.
Seek the help from the professionals and then take the guidance.
Okay.
They know more than you do. You're an expert on your kid, but they're an expert in the field. So they're going to tell you what your best chances are in beating this thing.
Okay, so we usually take callers, but tonight we're doing it a little differently
Mm-hmm.
because Bobby and Meagan have a podcast, and they're going to share with us some of their moments of callers calling in.
Yep.
Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah. So we've had some pretty compelling stories from folks that have called into the show. And I'm excited to share some of that with you. And actually, the first one that we have is a woman named Dawn Brown who struggled for years with addiction. She was featured in a documentary on Netflix called A New High, in which they used a very unorthodox approach to getting people into recovery. And so she
Okay.
shares a little bit about
Let's hear
her
that one.
story.
I've just never done anything like this and never thought I could or whatever, I was so far gone. I would just be driving around for days, drinking and smoking crack. From age 13, it was just from the minute I started drinking, it took away all that anger and rage that I had been feeling. It was really bottling up inside me. Everything looks good on the outside. We always had nice homes, We always dressed well, just that's how things were supposed to be. He would give us these beatings. He'd go and do my brother first, and I had to listen to my brother screaming. And then and he just, it was just so awful. So you're supposed to bend over, pull down your pants, and he had this big board that he would just beat you with it. And it was just, I look at it now, it's just disgusting. You just feel so different from everybody else. So, I just felt like I didn't get a fair start.
Okay, so we just listened to that, and she said, I feel like I didn't get a fair start.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't get a fair start.
Absolutely not. And this is where we see, you know, the trauma and the history of trauma and physical abuse and emotional abuse really having such an impact on somebody's development, not only as a child but as an adult. And as we know from the research, you know, you can be exposed to trauma like that with an abusive parent, let's say, in Dawn's example, and your brain is actually going to change. There's an actual impact on the physical development of your brain and the way in which you operate in the world. And so she found relief by using substances like crack cocaine and alcohol because she was filled with rage, had a chip on her shoulder because she got dealt a bad hand.
Okay. What about the kids that grow up in homes that mom and dad really love them and have done everything for them, except bent over backwards, and their kids are using drugs too? Is there any rhyme or reason? Is it, by the way, genetic?
Yep.
Any role play in that one?
Sure. And they say, what is it, like 60 to 40? So 60% of people use for social and psychological reasons and 40% use for genetic reasons. So, I mean, you could have a genetic predisposition to addiction and not actually know it until that substance enters your body.
So if my great-grandfather was an alcoholic and my grandfather was an alcoholic, why do I want to try? And I've never had a drink in my life. That was enough to scare me.
I wish you would.
So I'm never going to drink. I don't see anything good that comes out of that, by the way. Everybody gets animated and acts like a bunch of idiots, and I'm going to watch all this, and they get loud, and but it doesn't matter. As a young girl, and my father owned nightclubs, I wasn't drinking. I was working behind the bar because I saw that. I saw it was a happy moment at the end of an event, or my grandfather, my wedding. You know, he had to pull his stunt because he drank too much. Like, I'm never going to, why do I want to do that?
Well, and that's your ability to foresee the long-term consequences of that behavior, right?
So why can't more see that? If they're subjected to it, why don't they see it is my question.
I mean, there's so many different theories, right? But like the frontal lobe development is a big part. So when we look at the neuroscience of the development of somebody's brain, if somebody has a frontal lobe that's not fully developed, and like we said in the previous segment, that's not developed until you're age 25, you can't expect a child to be able to foresee the long-term consequences of incredibly dangerous behavior, which is why the parents need to be engaged as much as possible. That compass is broken until they're 25. So we need somebody who has the knowledge and who has the experience to be able to step in and say, I'm going to help guide you, and I'm going to use whatever skills I have to
let me hear another one of your podcasts. I want to hear another caller.
Doc, this is the first opportunity I've had to extend a sincere, heartfelt thanks for all you've done for Meagan with regards to your Vivitrol program. Also, the invaluable advice that you've given her that I know she's listened. I know she listened to you. You not only saved her life, but you also saved her parents as well, and I can't thank you enough.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. It's a privilege to be able to take care of these patients while other people run in the other direction.
And that's what they do. They run in the other direction.
Yep.
No one wants to put their money behind drug addiction, homing, beds. We're out of beds in Boston by what? November? Everybody's coming in from the cold. Bobby, that was you talking to Meagan's doctor?
Yeah, he was the guy that got her on the Vivitrol, which saved her.
Which Vivitrol, what's the difference between like a Suboxone?
So Suboxone's an opiate.
Yep.
Methadone's an opiate. It's going to bind to the mu receptor in the brain the same way in which any other opiate would. So the withdrawal off of that once you decide to stop is going to be pretty horrific.
And Vivitrol?
Non-opioid medication that mimics an opioid just enough to bind to those receptors in the brain, fill them up entirely, and now you cannot experience any euphoria from any opioid as long as that is active.
Are you still on that medication?
No, so I was on that for 3.5 years, which is probably the longest of anybody I've ever known to be on that medication. I've been off of it for almost 2.5.
Good for you. Give me a fist pump.
Yeah, right?
I like
that.
this girl. But how about our younger kids? I'm trying to get my point across here. How the hell do we spread this word that kids, get your heads? I mean, parents, stop being in denial. There's got to be a way to stop. I build these beautiful homes. I want to make beautiful memories. I don't want to make sick, dark, deep secrets in those homes. What more can we do as a country, as a city, a town, to help other parents with their kids? There's got to be a way for people to get together, because this is our next generation of kids coming up. Like, really?
And fortunately, we have really great programs out here. We have the Not My Kid program. We have the No First Time program. We have Learn to Cope. We have so many avenues that people can explore.
But you guys get buried. No one wants to hear it. Why?
Well, because of the shame. It's the stigma. I mean, that's really the stigma.
Stigma's I can't use the words I like to use, but I'm on radio. I'm sorry, folks. I only know certain words. But stigmas. Get over yourselves, parents.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't ever say "Not my kid." Just don't ever say it. Don't think it. Don't say it.
It's like this. every woman I've ever met that says, not my husband, meaning cheating, their husbands are cheating, okay?
There you
So
go.
I make sure I kept my mouth shut in the corner, okay? And when they all go, not my kids.
I mean, you have to be able to make it feel comfortable for your kid that no matter what they do, if they hurt somebody or something, that they can come to you and talk to
Exactly.
you. It's a big thing, communication.
well, right, like my father, he would never punish me on the crime
As long as you told the truth.
as long as I told the truth. If I did something wrong and I lied, oh, God. And my father didn't ever hit me, but he gave me those eyes that I just went, okay. I learned at about 13 years old, you tell the truth. And he would say, I don't care what the crime is, just tell me the truth so I can help you. How do parents, you need to say that to your son, your daughter, Mike, Susie, I don't care what you're doing. You're not going to get punished.
Yeah, and you
Just
have to
talk to me.
and follow up with that though. Don't make empty promises and say, "Oh, tell me the truth and everything will be fine," and then you lose your mind when they actually do it. I mean, create an
can't
open
lose
space.
the mind.
You can't. You have to stay
You have to say
level-headed.
thank you for telling me.
Exactly.
That's
and
where,
honor
that's
their
where
courage.
That's where my dad was great. He never freaked out. My mother, blah. I think it's a mother thing, but yes, you're right. You can't freak out. Okay, we're going to break. Oh, God. This is Cindy Stumpo, Tough as Nails, WBZ News Radio, 1030. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Tough as Nails on WBZ News Radio 1030. And as we know, we've been listening to Bobby and Meagan Kenney and Sammy, and they're both recovering addicts. And tonight's topic has been about opiate addiction. Meagan, Bobby, how do people watch your podcast? So, I'm sorry, listen to your podcast.
Yes,
I'm
listen. Yeah, so they can find us if you have an iTunes device. You can find us on the iTunes podcast app. And then we're also on a number of different platforms, including the Stitcher app and the Podbean app and the CastBox app.
All right, Meagan, you talk very fast like we all do, okay? Go slowly so they understand. Give them one. Give them one place to find you.
TheAddictionaryPodcast.com.
Okay.
Is where you're going to find everything.
And if people want to reach out to you, Bobby, you, as a father, as a individually, do you help individuals,
Yeah.
How do they reach out to you?
Yeah, we've received a lot of messages through our email, which is theaddictionarypodcast@gmail.com. And we encourage people to contact us, ask questions, share their stories.
Great. People, we all fall out here. But the saying is not how hard we fall, but how we pick ourselves up. We've all suffered out here with addiction or alcoholism in our families, me being one. So this close is going to be a little hard tonight. But of course, once again, people stand in judgment of others. Me, never. Why? Because I live in a glass house, and so don't you. You think your life is perfect? Give me a break. Now you're delusional. Somebody's child dies. The first thing we ask, was it drugs? Who cares? A father and mother just lost a child. A sister lost her brother, or a brother lost a sister. That's important. What's important is that we lost another child or a young adult too soon. This has to stop. We as a whole need to help these people and stop putting them in a box. They aren't losers. They have a disease. And it's a horrific disease. This is Cindy Stumpo, Tough as Nails on WBZ News Radio 1030. See you next weekend. And thanks for listening.